How well I remember that terrible day when our blood stained the sand and the water, and how in that hell that they called Suvla Bay we were butchered like lambs at the slaughter. Johnny Turk, he was ready, he primed himself well, he rained us with bullets, he showered us with shells, and in 5 minutes flat he'd blown us to hell, nearly blew us right back to Australia. And the band played a waltzing Matilda as we stalked to bury our slain. We buried us, and the Turks buried theirs. Then we started all over again. So I'll go no more waltzing Matilda all around a green bush near and far. For to hum tent and pegs a man needs 2 legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. No more waltzing Matilda for me. No more waltzing Matilda for me. Coming up next on The Breadwinning Mums.
The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And too many people have been indifferent for too long. Please get around the Jewish community, show your support, but build a friendship and deepen an understanding that they will meet you with open hands and hearts. I believe that they would also welcome you into their home.
Last Sunday, on the 14th of December 2025, in the late afternoon during a Hanukkah celebration attended by approximately 1,000 people, 2 gunmen shot at the crowd, killing 15 people, including a Holocaust survivor, 2 rabbis, and a 10-year-old girl, Matilda. We are joined today by Michael Scott, an Australian Army veteran, previously head of military to the UN, founder and CEO of the 2023 Foundation, and author of A Light Still Burns. Michael shares the importance of understanding the context and unbiased history of what happened in the past, and what we can all do to stand alongside our Jewish and Muslim communities to push forward a unified and resilient Australia. I wish you all a safe holiday season. Michael Scott, welcome to the Breadwinning Mums podcast.
Hey Jane, wonderful to be with you and your listeners here today.
Thank you so much for finding the time, especially during this part of the year. Now, I usually ask guests on the show about their background, about their trajectory of their career, but seeing the importance of the topic that we are going to discuss today, I would just like to go straight to the heart, if you wouldn't mind. The recent Bondi massacre. What is your perspective on that, based on your background?
Yeah, Jane, what a horrible week it's been. I'll start with saying that friends of mine were murdered last Sunday. Other friends of mine with their children were within meters of people that were murdered last Sunday. And indeed, my wife and I were probably going to be at that event on Bondi Beach, but for a pre-existing dinner about a kilometre or so away. But there may be utility in me providing your listeners a little bit about my backstory. Are you happy for me to do that?
Of course.
Yeah. Michael Scott, I'm a 31 and change year veteran of the Australian Army. I rose to the rank of colonel. I served in East Timor, in Bougainville, in Iraq, 2 tours of Afghanistan. And then from the period July 2019 to September 2021, I served as a colonel in the Australian Army on secondment to the United Nations as a senior leader in the first ever United Nations peacekeeping mission in Jerusalem, Israel's eternal capital. I was responsible for 153 officers drawn from 27 different troop contributing countries, including from an Australian perspective, non-traditional partners like Russian Federation, People's Liberation Army of China, America, and 20 odd other countries. We operated in Israel, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, and in Egypt. And we were there to observe and monitor and report the terms of the ceasefire agreement. That was my role for the first 3 months of my deployment. But at the 3 month mark, the Norwegian Major General, my boss, went back home, wasn't replaced. And then for the next 2 years, I acted higher duties as the acting head of military United Nations Truth Supervision Organization, specifically from October 2019 to October 2021. And for that, I was awarded a couple of years ago the Conspicuous Service Cross from the Governor General of Australia, David Hurley, for my services at a strategically significant period of the world at a very difficult time. But more recently, stepping out of the military, I founded a nascent global charity to combat anti-Semitism. I'm not Jewish, I'm not religious, I'm not political, but I'm a veteran, and I've lived in Israel for a couple of years. And I know that those that threaten Israelis, whether they be Jews or Druze or Arab Christian or Muslim or Baha'i or Circassian, or indeed what we've seen in Australia last Sunday, the beautiful Jewish community of Australia celebrating Hanukkah, a holiday of light, at Bondi Beach with their kids when they were murdered by a monster, a violent Islamic militant fundamentalist in the most recent expression of political Islam that we've seen. I find it absolutely horrifying and unfortunately absolutely predictable with the horrible state of journalism in Australia. I'm going to call it out, Jane. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation are negligent and culpable. And this is from someone that grew up listening to and trusting the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. If it sounds to you and your readers like I am deeply, deeply traumatized, guilty as charged. My experience across a 31-year military career is such that, in my judgment, post-traumatic stress disorder, there's no disorder in it. It's just natural responses to some really bad stuff. But just to contextualize how you and I met one another, after October 7, or more particularly October 9, 2023, where a bunch of terrorists shouted, "Gas the Jews, F the Jews" at the Sydney Opera House, 2 days after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust occurred in Israel, I sprang into action. I put up my hand to step out of my 31-year career as a colonel in the Australian Army, and I founded a charity. And Jane was one of my wonderful mentors and instructors on my third master's degree, a Master's of Business Administration, first 8 months being at the Australian Graduate School of Management, and then finishing it off at NYU Stern School of Business earlier this year. But just to prove that I'm not completely one to dominate the conversation, I might zip my lip now and hand back to you on your wonderful show.
Thank you, Michael. And I think a lot of us Australians are feeling quite a heavy heart, not just for the Jewish community, but a shocked dumbfoundedness with the fact that this something like this could happen in Australia. We thought we were the lucky country. We thought that we were the safe country, but we are no more. But I guess part of the reasons why I invited you into this podcast is to highlight the importance of us, every one of us, to not being just a passive bystander, but to take collective action. And that action could be discussion, could be an actual action by talking to people in your electorates. In your perspective, though, Michael, with your work with 2023 Foundation, you also have a book that you published, A Light Still Burns. What can we all do to avoid something similar happening in the future, something worse happening in the future, but also to support our Jewish community that we have here?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. It's a horrible period in time. For those listeners that have had their information translated to them by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, this last 4 or 5 days must have come as a horrible shock. We are being lied to by our national broadcaster. I am a very serious person. That is a very serious allegation, but that is my professional military judgment and my judgment of a citizen and patriot of this country. The nearest explanation for the readers to what we've seen in the last couple of years, not only from the ABC, but the BBC in the UK, MSNBC and CNN in America, is George Orwell's seminal work, 1984. Otherwise sensible and educated people are being hoodwinked into believing that 2 + 2 = 5. And as someone that taught me some pretty complex sums recently in corporate finance, hopefully that will resonate. I believe, Jane, and for your dear listeners, that Einstein is right. We cannot hope to solve tomorrow's problems without first understanding and framing them. And I might just do a shout out to my book, A Light Still Burns, Israel and the Values Worth Defending. It was published by an American publishing house, Wicked Sons. Some of your listeners may have heard of Melanie Phillips, an amazing lioness from the United Kingdom. It's the same publisher that did Melanie Phillips' last work. My book is available on Amazon. It's available on Kindle, and it's also available on audiobook. I wrote it in February this year after the murders of Cherie and Kafir and Ariel Bibas. not by Hamas monsters, but by radicalized Gazan civilians in Gaza. I say again, a young mum with her two infant boys. And I wrote it after, firstly, they were murdered, but secondly, the rejoicing and the celebrations of radicalized civilians in a place called Judea and Samaria, parentheses, the West Bank, and also Gaza. I was so traumatized by that event, having lived in Israel a couple of years, and the reaction since, that I wrote an article that I published in this I Am Yarden Bibas, the father of the two boys and the husband of the murdered Cherie. But after writing and getting that article published, I felt completely unsatiated, and I wrote a complete book. This is my expression of helping people understand a little bit about a lot of topics that all of us, I think, once believed was half a world away. But as the monsters, not only on that Sunday, showed us in Bondi, but those other monsters that we saw on our televisions be forcibly detained in Liverpool in Western Sydney just overnight, the threat is real. And I cannot stress upon all of your listeners enough, my motivation in writing this book was as though the safety of my unborn grandchildren depended upon my work. I've spent 30 years understanding things that in better times civilians would not need to pay attention to. That changed, and it changed permanently last Sunday at Bondi Beach. And so please, all the readers, it doesn't matter if you're religious or atheist or agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or Christian or Sikh or Buddhist or Hindu. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if you're secular, if you're gay or straight. Please wrap your head around what is in on this book, because it's my professional judgment that we have not reached rock bottom yet. The number of violent Islamic militant fundamentalists that are living in Australia and that are posing a safety risk, not only to the beautiful Jewish community, but to you and to me, can no longer be ignored, can no longer be ignored.
Your book is about Israel and the values worth defending. What values do you write about?
Yeah, Israel and the values worth defending. Circling back to what we have largely heard, not only from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, but also in the pages of the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age and The Guardian, it would have caught readers horribly, horribly unawares with what happened on Sunday, because we are so habitually used to hearing that it's all the right-wing government of Israel's fault, that the Levantine Arabs, that is the Gazans, and the Arabs in Judea and Samaria, that we have been paying taxpayers' dollars to for decades, that has in turn been used by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency to teach a level of Jew hatred that Israelis saw on October 7, 2023, and that every Australian saw just last Sunday. In part, it was our taxpayers' money that led to that outcome. So we have to get our head around the extent of the issue. As to specific values, I talk about Western values. Israel is a Western country. It's a frontier democracy on the bleeding edge of our civilization. They believe in free market economics, the rule of law, the emancipation of women, and the protection of minorities. They are not only Jewish values, they are Israeli values, they are Australian values, and they are Western values. These are the values that are under threat at the moment. So for goodness sakes, readers, do please get your head around what is going on. I am the last person to say that my book should be the only one that you read, but please read my book because I poured decades of professional military knowledge and background and experience as a non-Jewish, non-religious, non-political veteran, but someone is a patriotic Australian and can see very clearly from a study of history that this will get worse until enough people stand up and say, not on my watch. And so something that really motivates me, even though this feels Sisyphean work, like I'm rolling a boulder to the top of the hill, only for it to roll back down. In my judgment, with me exercising my agency now, because I believe it's time for my light to shine, I am subtly but substantively removing the weight that would otherwise shift onto the shoulders of my children and my unborn grandchildren.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd like to quote Pastor Martin Niemöller from 1945. He said, "In Germany, they came first for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me. And by that time, no one was left to speak up."
It's a powerful quote and one I'm familiar with. And just to fire one back at you to sort of structure the next discussions. Uh, in my judgment, this is existential for the Australia that I thought I was living in 2022, and the Australia I want us to steer back to. In my study of previous civilizations, it would appear that they don't die of old age. It appears that civilizations commit suicide. And as taxpayers and as voters, we need to pay attention to what is going on. You will not hear me pitching to a particular party something that separates a recent Australian veteran and officer from someone like in the junta in Burma, is that senior military officers in Burma meddle in politics. I won't do that here, but suffice it to say, I am horrified and I am incredibly disappointed by our elected officials. There has been a failure in the political class in Australia, and I hold the Australian Broadcasting Corporation to account because Australians are reasonable people. They are kind-hearted. They are good-natured. We have been monumentally misled. We have been gaslit. We have been lied to in something that is akin to what George Orwell mapped out in the 1940s in his seminal work titled 1984.
What can we all do once we have read your book, A Light Still Burns, and understand this whole predicament from an action-based point of view? What can all of us Australian citizens do to prevent that from happening?
Talking strategically, there is only a binary choice. We either stick up for our family and our values and our way of life. That is door number one. Door number two is we live with the consequences of our complacency and of our cravenness. I choose door number one. If I want to go fast, I go by myself. If I want to go far, I go in the company of the many and the willing and the able. And it was with that in mind that I took significant time and care and energy to produce my book earlier in this year. I am not banging on about my book for sales. I'm not J.K. Rowling. It's not about making money. It is about alerting people, decent, reasonable people in different groups and different networks that Houston, we have a big problem. It is a problem that is getting worse, and it is a problem that can only be solved by us. And I think outside of reading my book, reach out to some of your local Jewish groups. Get around the Jewish community. They have felt completely betrayed, not only by the government, at state and at federal and at local level. They feel completely betrayed by the intelligence agencies. They feel completely betrayed by law and order. They feel completely betrayed from despicable academics, people that subscribe to the bigoted, dishonest, and sinister campaign. They feel completely betrayed by people like the New South Wales Teachers Federation. I live in the CBD of Sydney, and for 2 years, I have seen despicable bigots that when they look in the mirror, they see themselves as educated political warriors who are titled professor and doctor or teacher that have been in the same marches with people that have been shouting from the river to the sea, globalize the intifada, and all sorts of other hateful messaging. Death, death to the IDF. Please get around your Jewish community. Please take time to call and speak with some of the rabbis. Please ask, would you please have me as a guest in your synagogue? I would like to come and show solidarity. Now, you will need to do that a couple of days in advance because the threat that is now undeniable, the threat is real. And the threat has not been neutralized with the killing of one of those monsters from last Sunday and the incarceration of another one of those monsters. In my judgment, there are probably thousands more of those monsters in society that are being radicalized by hate-filled imams in Western Sydney and in Melbourne and in other places. But coming back to the people of the book, that is the Jewish community, do please reach out to them, support them, understand more about their beautiful religion. Judaism is a non-proselytizing religion. Friday evening and Saturday is their holy day. If you know any Jewish people, please invite yourself to their Shabbat dinner on a Friday night. I know it's not culturally the done thing for people like me, inviting myself to someone else's residence where they're cooking for me. But can I give you a window into how lonely the Jewish community has felt over the last couple of years? They will metaphorically and may even physically wrap their arms around you, and the tears that they will shed will be tears of joy and tears of relief. And so please, please reconnect at every level. If you know a Jewish person in your workplace, stand by them. Stand by them. If you see someone wearing a Magin David in a bus or on a street, stand by them, stand next to them. They are the best of us. And they felt completely betrayed from the government and the society that they have worked so incredibly to support over hundreds of years.
Mhm. Thanks, Michael. I find myself speechless, to be honest with you. I think most of us are still processing what happened, um, still want to be there for the community. And I think what you mentioned before, you don't really need to be the savior. You don't really need to be the fixer. Just be there.
Yeah, big weights are best carried forward on the shoulders of the many and the willing and the able. Best problems are best resolved today, and not tomorrow. This involves us all, Jane. This involves us all. I will flag that this is not about all Muslims, contrary to what that reprehensible, I say again, reprehensible Laura Tingle on the ABC a couple of days ago said that this was not about religion. That is a scurrilous lie. That is an example of gaslighting and projection of Orwellian proportions. This is absolutely about religion. It is about Islam. But that does not mean it's about all Muslims. I have many dear Muslim friends. And if there's a group of people in Australian society at the moment that most resemble the fear of Jews and of practicing Christians that are getting slaughtered in Nigeria and slaughtered in Syria right now. You might not have heard about it if you listen to the ABC for your, we won't say news, we will say skewed opinion. If there's a group of people in Australian society that are terrified of the Islamists, it is modern or atheist Muslims. Uh, these people, these monsters that slaughtered dear members of the Australian Jewish community on Bondi last week, my friends, they are hunting for moderate Muslims as well. And so it's in that context that we need to view the alleged return to Australia of ISIS brides. It is within that context that we need to view the allegedly thousands of people that the Australian government are bringing into Australia from Gaza. Now, you know me, Jane, but your audience doesn't. I am a father and I am a humanist. And I believe in the Jewish tradition that if you save one life, you save a whole world. But we need to understand the context. Hamas are monsters. Hamas still run Gaza. The only people that Hamas let out of Gaza are the people that Hamas are happy to let out of Gaza. Those people, those Levantine Arabs that have lived in the Gaza envelope that aren't supporting Hamas enough. We saw what 2 months ago, after hostilities ceased, they were murdered by Hamas. Did we hear the ABC give fair weighting or commentary or opinion on what actually was happening in Gaza? One of the things that it is so despicable, is this tendency that if it doesn't involve the Jews, it doesn't hit the news. Alleged crimes or failures in rules of engagement from the IDF results in chapter and verse. Misinformation, Hamas propaganda, results in chapter and verse from failing and negligent and culpable Western media. Let's name them: the New York Times, the ABC in Australia, BBC, MSNBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, that is run by Qatar. Qatar is a terrorist state. There is no two ways about it. It is being regurgitated and fed uncritically to good citizens of Australia. It's left us in an inverted perspective. Please, Jane and your dear listeners, these are really, really serious issues. There has been a massacre of Australian Jews in a pogrom, a premeditated murder of Australian citizens that just happen to be Jewish. And please, none of us should feel that we have yet seen rock bottom. In my view, in an absence of leadership, and I'm seeing an absence of leadership, there's only three ways that this thing can go: get better, get worse, or stay the same. We need to be part of the solution and not being part of the problem by omission. As a Holocaust survivor, Elie Wiesel ruminated, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And too many people have been indifferent for too long. Please get around the Jewish community. Please get around and show your support, but build a friendship and deepen an understanding. That they will meet you with open hands and hearts. And when they confirm that you're not going to threaten their lives, I believe that they would also welcome you into their home so that you will not be told about their beautiful customs and traditions. You will be able to see and experience it with your own eyes.
Great. All right, Michael Scott, thank you for sharing some of your time with us. I do hope that we'd be able to have you on again next time, perhaps to talk about your life journey. But for now, thank you so much for spending your time with us. A Light Still Burns, available in Amazon and any good shops near you.
This episode of The Breadwinning Mums was produced by me, Jane Lim, and our theme music was produced by Sam McNally. We recorded this episode on the lens of dark people who have passed their parenting story for generations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and thank them for caring for country. Connect with us through LinkedIn or Instagram at Breadwinning Mums. Until next time.